Welcome to another Voices on the Roanoke. We have a special guest today, Al Ambrose. What a character and what a good time we're going to have. Al, welcome to the Roanoke River Maritime Museum.
Glad to be here. Thanks for asking.
Fantastic. I'm going to pass this over to you, and then I'm going to ask you a few questions if you don't mind.
Well, as long as they're not classified, I'll give you an answer.
That sounds like a good thing. Al, where are you from?
I am a native Washington County personage.
Tell us about Lake Phelps.
Lake Phelps, speaking of Josiah Collins, he and his the Lake Company and a couple of other investors from over at Edenton, they wanted to rename Lake Phelps to Scuppernong Lake, but the name Lake Phelps stayed right on. Lake Phelps is got its name because back in the 1700s, nobody except the Native Americans even knew it was there. And Josiah Phelps and Benjamin Tarleton and my fifth great granddaddy, Jesse Ambrose, were deer hunting over there. And their dogs would run would run south and just stop barking. And what was happening was the deer ran out into the lake and swam the dogs off, and they'd lose the trail of it. Well, one day the dogs did that, and so they said, Benjamin Tarleton said, I'll climb a tree and I'll see if I can, it's really thick, I'll climb up and see. And he climbed the tree and looked and said, good Lord, there's a huge lake out there. And Josiah Phelps took off running and left my granddaddy Jesse and Ben up a tree and ran and jumped and dived in the lake and said, I proclaim this Lake Phelps. The name is still to this day.
That's funny. That's a good story. Growing up in Cresswell, did you get to, what was Cresswell like?
Cresswell back in the 1960s and 70s was a booming little place. We had our own school, and everybody, we played ball, that whatever was in season, and country folks, boys would go hunting and fishing, and the girls, they did what girls do. Yeah, and we had our ongoing feud with the Columbia people, because it seemed like Cresswell boys would go down and date the Columbia girls, and the Columbia boys would do the opposite, and they end up with a big fight going on.
That's just the way it goes. I hear a hint of a high county accent coming through on you as well.
Well, we call it the Carolina brogue, and I'm pretty proud of it because it's unique, but it has its course from Old England.
Sure.
And I still believe the colonists didn't get lost. They went inland in Dare County and settled a place called Beachland. Well, that Old English Celtic, like Geoffrey Chaucer and William Shakespeare would talk.
A 16th century.
16th century, and from Wales, Ireland, and Scotland, it stuck. And when more people came over, they were more isolated, and whole communities were kin to each other, very related, and they didn't travel much because they didn't have the money and the means.
Right.
And so it stayed.
Well, what did you do after high school?
Well, I did menial jobs, and I got married really early and became a father really early too. So I finally worked my way away, then got into the United States government, and I worked with them off and on, except for a 5-year span where I was a police officer for Plymouth, North Carolina for 5 years, and also at the same time was auxiliary deputy sheriff, and did work with the state narcotics task force, and then I carried that over into the FBI HR hostage rescue team and other government agencies that here and there,
Right.
and especially the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service.
What did you do for the Fish and Wildlife Service?
I did, of course, law enforcement, but I was also worked in the forestry and the biology departments, and I pretty much got to be the ramrod of the Atlantic white cedar, which the local people call juniper trees, the project for restoration on that. And I was already interested in that before I ever got into the Fish and Wildlife Service, and that kind of picked me right up to go with it. I also was on the longleaf pine restoration program, and I did work with the red wolf biology and the black bear program of trying to figure out how many bears there were on the Coast and Lakes National Wildlife Refuge per mile, which ended up, I think the study came out, it was 3.5 bears per square mile.
Wow. And
the biggest density of them was around Pongo Lake, which is on the Washington County and Hyde County border. I also helped sister refuges there do the same thing, especially Alligator River and Maritime.
So you've been out in the woods a lot around here. You know the value. People don't understand the value of a tree, but a cypress or a sycamore tree, that was really, really important here.
Sycamore is known, and it's still got big plantations of that in Bertie County, up around the Roanoke River refuge, all along the Roanoke River up there. But the big value back in the day was the huge cypress and juniper. Juniper was big time good for shingle making. They made the roof that made shingles out of that.
Yep.
It lasted, and it was insect impervious, and it made great ship mass. And the cypress is known for durable lumber.
You mentioned a longleaf pine. That was important for the naval stores for harvesting turpentine or pitch to make turpentine out of.
That's true, and there are very few. There were some down here, but it's gone. You have some plantations, a hit and miss field that's been set out here and there. One notably I noticed down going 32 in Beaufort County. The biggest is down plantation down to Hoffman Forest, and all down south toward Wilmington. They have big tracts of longleaf pine.
I grew up in the Sandhills, and that's what we had, were longleaf pine. That's a special environment. I would love to have seen that here because it's clear underneath it with savannas and different things, different plants growing.
The area around here is really, it's a unique because it's sediment from where Africa was pushed up against the plate of North America and pushed the Appalachian Mountains up, which they said the Uares and the Appalachians were tall, if not taller than the Rocky Mountains are out west. And what we're living on is the erosion from those mountains down here. And Dr. Stanley Riggs from ECU Geology told me personally, but he's been documented and on PBS, but he said the soil around here is sinking about a centimeter a year, but the water level, the ocean level, is rising faster than that and is going to accelerate eventually. It's hard to believe this, but the ocean used to be Plymouth, where we're sitting, that was underwater. It was the ocean about 20,000 years ago, and he said it's quite possible if you do the mathematics of it all that it will be even further. And the evidence that it was an oceanfront is on the county line with Martin County. There's two big sand hills. That was the sand dunes at that time, between 20 and 25,000 years ago. And he said it's very possible now that the ocean could go inland as far as Rocky Mountain. the only constant on the earth is change.
That's right.
And it's going to change. It's always, that's the way it was designed by the great creator.
When you were growing up and running around between Cresswell and Plymouth, did you ever get out on the river, out in the swamps and play, or?
I stayed, because where my old home place, which I'm staying there taking care of my almost 99-year-old mother, we're not even a quarter mile from the Roanoke River, which flows. It actually starts up in what used to be called the East Dismal Swamp, which is all up in the Roper area, all down to Winona. And the water would flow down the river all the way out to Columbia, and still does. But I stayed so much in that river swamp messing around till some of the old folks called me Davy Crockett. Said, he's in, you never know, or Davy Crockett's going to pop out at any time. Yeah, and over the years of hunting and all and fishing, there ain't much that I haven't been on or seen. And I did something out of just to do this. One Saturday, I said, out of frustration, because I was having to exercise real much for the government work and everything I did, I decided I was going to hike all the way around Lake Phelps. And I did it. That's roughly between 24 and 25 miles around.
That's a big walk.
And I started at the crack of day at Pettigrew State Park, up near Somerset Place, North Shore, and I went all the way around. And then I said, you know, I can do this. I have to do all kinds of things and go many miles for the government. I decided I'm going to do something I don't know if anybody has ever done before besides that. I decided one Saturday I was going to hike Washington County from east to west and then north to south. And I started at the Terrell County line, and I hiked all the way through Plymouth to the Martin County line. And then at that time it was my wife at that time. She picked me up and brought me down here to the river shore, right down here. And I hiked out and went down Long Ridge Road all the way to
Beaufort County.
Went to Martin Beaufort County line, because they butt right up in there, and I walked this whole entire county one Saturday. And it was after dark when I finished it. But I hiked it.
I bet it was. What was, I mean, the Scuppernong today is a beautiful river. There's nothing really on it, just pure nature. It's a great river to kayak on. Put in there at Cresswell and go all the way to Columbia where the river starts to get wide. Any great memories of finding old things? Because that's a heavily used transportation river from the time folks started coming here in the 1670s up until the 1930s.
My fifth great granddaddy and some of his brothers and then some of his sons, they bought the greatest majority of the land on the south side of the Scuppernong River, which now we call it the Cherry area, and it should never have been named. It was named for the surveyor Gibbston Cherry, but it should have been named Ambrose, because the Ambroses owned all of it from the mouth of Mall Creek in the Scuppernong all the way almost to Roper or to the East Dismal Swamp. They just bought it up and farmed it, and then over the years it lost. Cherry up there, that was a big port. And of course the Collinses built the old canal or Somerset Canal that went right up to the front door of the mansion there.
Right.
And
Connected the lake to the river.
Connected the lake to the Scuppernong River, and they shipped from there and Cherry out and over to Edenton, and they could go all the way up to Norfolk.
Right.
Big areas in there. Cresswell wasn't there at the time. It was a little community on a hill called Cool Spring, and later it became incorporated as Cresswell, and actually moved a little bit to where it is right now.
Right.
But there was, we used to play all that. In fact, they had baptisms in the river up there, and herons. The herons would run in the spring, and you would see people lying in the canals and the river shore with the great big chicken wire dip nets.
Dip nets and bow nets.
Catching them up. And Mr. Wilson Moore had about a 49 Chevrolet pickup, and he had built a water tank, of cookers, and all right in the bed of it, and we'd have fish fries right there on wherever, up the Beatree Canal, which went to the Pettigrews, right by two of their plantation sites, and we'd have feast right there, and it was a wonderful time. Because wherever he was, you'd have boiled stewed potatoes and cornbread, fresh herrings, which people sometimes called them up and packed them in salt and pickled them. And I don't care much for it because I don't like a lot of salt, but that fresh herrings, they were something to behold.
What time of the year was that in?
Early spring, which would be February, March. There would be prime time runs up there, and they would go all the way into Lake Phelps. But now it's against the law to catch them. They depleted them.
What's your biggest memory of coming to Plymouth? Was it like coming to a big town when you coming from Cresswell to Plymouth?
Well, it was Plymouth wasn't quite as big as it is right now. But it had, back when I was young, late 60s, early 70s, you had trains moving through here. You'd hear them trains and get to see them and watch them, and that was something to feel the grind rumble under you. And it had fast food places. You had, at that time it was called the Little Mint, was out on the highway. We'd actually come up here and get groceries. I mean, the big stock, and we had to come up here to the doctor. Our family doctor was Dr. Highsmith, and he had a office in the back of a building just down Main Street. But it was the Main Street was crowded with people, and we had the Coca-Cola bottling place, and there was always somebody around there. We had a grocery store, open air grocery store down here too on the Main Street. But my grandmother was elderly and she had to go to the doctor. Of course, my daddy developed cancer early in life, and we had to bring him up here, and we just make a day out of it because you didn't get to come to town very often. So you grabbed what you could and on.
How far does your family go back?
My family, the Ambroses, I can trace, goes back to my 6th great granddaddy, David Ambrose, who came over from Wales in the early 1700s and settled in what's called Rocky Hawk now. It was Rockahawk at that time in Chowan County. And he bought 550 acres and set up a plantation and got a few slaves. And after that, none of the Ambroses ever had any right here. Some of his early sons and went down to, and grandsons went down to Onslow County and lower Georgia, and they had more slaves than anybody. my family was too poor to have any slaves. All we did was farm.
So you can trade. You got deep roots.
I have traced my family all the way back to 1460 in Lancashire, England. And Ambrose Hall is a home that was built by the Ambroses over there in 1620. And in 1650 they had to vacate it because of the England Civil War. Oliver Cromwell seized all power and said anybody who had been loyal to King Charles and all were enemies of the state. And there's where my family, Ambrose, some run to Scotland, some went to Lower Ireland. My great-granddad at the time grabbed his young'uns and went to Lower Wales. And some got sacked up, whether they wanted to or not, and got sent to the penal colony in Australia. And in doing my family genealogy, I bumped into two Ambroses, one that's in Lancashire, England, and one in New Zealand, and we all traced back to Ambrose Hall.
Oh my
it
goodness.
Still stands today on Ambrose Hall Road in Woodplumpton Lane, just out of Preston in Lancashire, England.
Wow. Well, you brought a couple of books today. You're an author as well?
I'm a published author many times over, but I put my street creds, so I put my name on two of them, but I started using assumed names because I got hounded by people running with their hand out, gimme. And if I'd have given to everybody that wanted it, I'd be in the pauper right now.
You'd have been borrowing.
I would have been in trouble.
You've got one on the Roanoke shore.
And then the sequel to it is Under a Pungo Moon. And there's also one that's not published called Near the Edenton Harbor. It's a trilogy. It's kind of in the vein of Nicholas Sparks style. He told me, write about what you know, make it like a Greek tragedy, and that's all I do. Why not? It should work for you.
It should work for you.
It worked.
Where are those available from?
Well, they're print on demand. You could go to probably Barnes and Nobles and ask them would they look it up, and they can order it for you right there. I won awards for some of my literary work, and I have greatly a pen and ink artist, though I use other mediums and paint, and I've won over 50 awards as an artist and photographer. And that's some of my hobbies. Other than my biggest hobby, which is wasting my money and on horses. Go love to mess with horses. Not racing horses per se, but barrel racing horses and horse show horses.
They say when a man becomes successful,
You'll lose it.
he goes to horses.
And he'll lose his money.
He goes to
If you had money, but you started messing with horses, your money's gone. They take it away from you.
Well, you've also brought with us today a picture of a pencil drawing.
No, it's pen and ink.
Is it pen and ink?
It's
Oh
gel
my goodness.
Gel pen and ink.
A pen and ink of Somerset Plantation.
These Dollar General pens, you can get them out of 10 in a pack. They are the best drawing you can draw on napkins, and they won't flood the paper.
That's great.
I can read it.
That's a beautiful.
That was my first blue ribbon. I did not start competing until, what was it?
2016.
I started going into enters into fairs and art shows, and that's my very first blue ribbon. On the very first show, I was stunned that it did what it did. I have also got books in the making that I have drawn something that's available for every county in the state of North Carolina. It's a multi-volume, but there will be something from every county in 3 volumes. I'm late getting it because I stopped to do horses and art shows and take care of my mother and government stuff that we will not talk about, but I have traveled the world a lot.
Well, Al, thank you for coming today. I appreciate
Yes,
you.
pleasure.
You're one of the first persons I've met here in town, and always get a smile on my face when I see you. Stay tuned. If you like what you've heard today, click, share, and subscribe. We'd love to have you come back and to visit us here in Plymouth. We're located at 206 West Water Street here in beautiful downtown Plymouth. Look forward to seeing you
It's a very
soon.
historical time. Come see it. It's got a lot of history. It goes back to the 17 and early 16 or late 1600s. A lot of stuff to see.
We'll see you next time.
Bye.